our CodeX group meeting. This is the first one in 2023, and we have three exciting presentations from legal tech innovators for you all today. We have Elisabetta Ludborza, the co-founder and COO of Caveat, which is a platform that helps folks in creator economy negotiate their contracts. And then we have Matthew Kervis, who's the founding attorney of Subscription Attorney, a service that is allowing attorneys to provide their services on a subscription basis rather than a billable hour basis. And then we have David Johnston, the CEO and founder of Archive, which is a service for, that provides also IP protection for creators with a configurable contract. So we're excited to learn about these legal tech startups. And I'll turn it over to Elisabetta as our first speaker. So we have three presentations. I would ask our speakers to, so keep their intros to about maybe 10 minutes or so and leave enough time for folks to ask questions. We have exactly 1 hour for the session, so that leaves everyone a total of 20 minutes. And with that, and if others in the group have any updates and news to share, I might suggest that you just put those into the chat. And if you have questions for our speakers, you can also use the chat function or unmute yourself so that we can hear you. So with that, Elisabetta, are you there?
Yes, I am. Oh, there we go. Hi, everybody.
Hello, where are you joining from?
I'm joining from a gloomy New York City.
All right, well, great. Well, welcome. And we'll turn it over to you.
Awesome, thank you so much. Really a pleasure and an honor to be here. Excited to present on Caveat. One moment. Oh. All right, does everybody see my screen? The typical
Yes,
question.
we can, yeah.
Oh, shoot, hold on. All right, there we go. Awesome. So we are Caveat, helping creatives and people sign the contracts that they deserve. Let me, skipped ahead a little bit. Experiencing technical difficulties already. There we go. Let me tell you about a story of a 17-year-old model who was approached by an agent via Instagram DMs to become signed with this modeling agency. She was presented with a contract full of legal jargon, and this is somebody who could not afford to hire an attorney, hire a lawyer to look over it, doesn't have a law degree, doesn't have a legal background to understand what the legal jargon actually means and entails and what the implications are for that model. She tried her best to negotiate out all the clauses that seemed a little bit suspicious, but much to her, unbeknownst to her, there were still many clauses in there that remained, which were still equally, if not more, predatory. Okay, there we go. There's a bit of a delay in the presentation. So we see here, the model is not allowed to refuse a job unless the agency feels that the excuse is valid. Another one, the model owes 50% of payment amount for breaching exclusivity. The contract automatically extends without the model's written consent, and so many more predatory clauses like this. And this model in particular is just one of 50 million in the United States that make up the creator economy, whether that's a model, and content creator, an influencer, a Twitch video game streamer. This is a problem that impacts all of them. So we built, and the creator economy is big and only getting bigger. We've seen 119% growth in the last 2 years, with more and more people wanting to become quote unquote content creators when they grow up. And there's been a shift towards transparency and accountability in these industries, which were previously seen as glamorous and lavish. And we've seen that with the Me Too movement. We've seen that with the first proposed Fashion Workers Act legislation in this area, which was proposed just in 2021. And there's just been a shift and a rising awareness around the unglamorous side of the industry, whether that's late payments, whether that's no payment at all, whether that's auto renewal clauses, cramped model apartments, and so much more. So we built a solution. Now with Caveat, when a creative gets a contract, whether it's an endorsement contract, an influencer agreement, anything of the like, they can submit it to Caveat's platform at caveatapp.com. And Caveat's AI will scan it, which is in a PDF contract form, and receive simple explanations and statistics about what each contractual clause actually entails. So we can see here on the screen what that might look like. And armed with this information, they're able to then go ahead and negotiate with the counterparty those non-equitable terms and get paid according to the contract deliverables. So what was previously a contract full of legal jargon, full of witnesses, now therefore indemnification, representations and warranties, legal principles that make sense to those who have had a legal education, but not those who are young, new to the industry, who don't have any legal background, and for whom the implications are really quite severe. To this is what your caveated contract can look like. And just to kind of further demonstrate it and make it a little, I'm a visual learner, so I think it's great to have a little demo. I might just skip ahead a little bit, but this is actually our version 2 of the product that will be released on February 1st. So you'll actually get a bit of a sneak peek. You can see that the user is able to hover over the contractual clauses, get a quick explanation that is very plain English, no legal jargon. And importantly, we're not providing legal advice, but we just explain what the contract actually entails, and we redact any personally identifiable information. And then they're able to fill out a quick feedback form to say what went well, what didn't, what their experience of using Caveat looked like. All right. And what's great is that the user is also able to look back at their past contracts. I know personally, I've stored a lot of my contracts in a Dropbox folder. Hold on, I think it skipped ahead. Let me just skip here. They can view their contracts and all of them are stored there, not in a Dropbox folder, just like I just mentioned, that I store them in as well. And they can see what they negotiated, what they didn't. And it's a much easier process this way. All right, let me skip ahead. So what is the value that we're providing? We help users save and make more money by identifying terms that are absolutely negotiable and ensuring that the contract's actually mutually beneficial to both parties. We help prevent predatory and unsafe situations by flagging them. And more importantly, we help users take control over their careers and not just be passive, not be passive in them. So what does the pricing look like? We are currently in the beta phase, and we have a subscription service that scales according to the user type. So if that's an individual content creator who's a micro-influencer, say on Instagram, and they just received a contract for a paid collaboration with a brand, they can either pay $10 per contract upload, or if they're getting a higher turnover of contracts per month, which we're seeing with influencers who have a following between 10 to roughly 100,000 followers, they would be better off, more well-suited with going for the $25 a month option. And we also have an enterprise level version of Caveat for talent managers, management agencies who negotiate on behalf of influencers, talents, athletes, models, and according to how many contracts they receive per week and they would like Caveat's AI's assistance with, the prices kind of vary based off that. So I think as somebody who has a legal background myself, I know my first question would be, okay, how do we make sure that this product is not actually falling foul of any, ethics rules, that there's no actual legal advice provided? This is made super, super clear through numerous disclaimers stating that we're not providing legal advice. We are not a substitute to a lawyer. We're actually a complement. And in our product development pipeline, we actually aim to become a specialized lawyer marketplace where if even after receiving a caveated contract, a user does want to get advice from a lawyer, we help facilitate that connection. And of course, our terms of use and privacy policy outline this as well. Oh, sorry. Skipping ahead. What is the roadmap? So currently we're at contract negotiation. But further down the line, we really want to help provide value to users in the scope of term and payment benchmarking, tax, immigration, and insurance streamlining, and just becoming that one-stop shop for whatever creatives' needs are. So if somebody were to wanted to become a content creator tomorrow, the first thing that they would have to do is create a Caveat account. And what's the vision? The vision is to revolutionize creatives' business needs. So in 10 years, Caveat will be the one-stop shop for content creator needs. If somebody would like our help, the first step would be to create a Caveat account, help with their contracts, financial tracking, making sure they're getting paid according to the contract deliverables. They're most likely independent contractors. There's tax implications for that, and so much more. And our customers are our best spokespeople. Here's just a couple of quotes from people who have used Caveat's AI to help understand their contracts. And it's probably unbiased, but this is my favorite slide of the entire presentation. And who are we? Who are we, the founders? So myself, I have a legal background. I studied law in the UK, Australia, most recently at Cornell Tech in the US. I've worked at institutions such as the Court of Justice of the European Union, where I analyzed the status of international contracts, or at eBay, where I worked as a legal officer for 2 years. And most importantly, I've been a content creator, influencer, whatever you want to call it, since 2009. So it's been quite a while. Started off with a blog, then pivoted to YouTube, and now most recently on Instagram. I've been the one to negotiate a lot of these deals with brands on my own. And that's because I have the privilege of having a law degree, but so many people do not, and are signing away rights that they don't even fully understand, or Google doesn't provide an explanation of how does indemnification apply to creatives. Dorothy, one of my co-founders, she is an engineer, an NLP engineer by training. She's worked as a quantitative researcher at NASA. And that story I shared at the very beginning of a model negotiating age 17, that was actually her. And that was kind of a story that really connected us. She shared that with me. I shared how I wanted to build something to kind of marry the two interests of law and influencing. And that was kind of the very beginnings of Caveat. And we were shortly joined by our incredible CTO, Christine, who has a engineering background, studied at Cornell for both undergrad and postgrad, has worked as a full stack software engineer at Capital One Bank, where she built out a system integration testing framework from the ground up. And as a group, we have the legal, the machine learning, and the engineering skills to build this. And that's what Caveat's all about. I am very honored to have had the chance to speak with all of you. Thank you so much for listening. I know there's some upcoming great presenters. If anybody would like to connect, here's how you can do that, and happy to take any questions. I hope that was short and sweet enough.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Yeah, you answered my first question already, which is, what role will sort of benchmarking play? That's, I think, one thing is to explain, the meaning of legalese, and the next thing is to understand, how much leverage you have in actually negotiating it, right? And so, for you to know where you fall in the band of parties and what sort of what's possible in terms of getting on a particular clause, I think that's very valuable, and there's some players in other areas of contract analytics that are doing that. And you said that's something that's on your roadmap, or you already have that?
With regards to what is market standard and benchmarking, is that so it is something that we're constantly retraining our algorithm to include. So as our data set increases, and just for reference, there is no publicly available data set of these types of agreements. They have been either crowdsourced or our own from the very start. And Law Insider, for example, has some samples of influencer agreements, but they're all ours. As we increase our data set, we can provide more value to the user by saying, this clause appears in 87% of contracts of this type, for example. We did, in the initial phases, toy around with the idea of saying whether this is standard or not. thumbs up or thumbs down, but I think that just strays much too close to giving legal advice, and that's not what we're here to do. We just provide quite objective facts about the contract, and at no point are we trying to kind of breach anybody else's confidentiality. That's not what we're here to do. But I think
so
it's really yeah, go ahead.
How does your data model work? I mean, you have your own contracts that you use to train your model. Well, how do you make that translation work from legalese to kind of human understandable language? I think that requires some kind of human expertise, I guess, to like do that. How does that work?
Absolutely. It does require manual input. And in the very beginning days, it was me individually labeling each, contractual clause, making sure that there's no nuance that is lost, but making it broad enough that it can be, So
we're getting some background noise from someone. Hold on, let me just. Okay, I think we were able to turn it off. So, okay, go ahead.
There we go. Thanks for that. No, in the beginning, it was very much me going through each contractual clause and labeling it to make sure that, no nuance is lost, but at the same time that it's wide enough that it applies to all types of clauses that are from the same type of agreement, if that makes sense. Our AI is completely proprietary. It's been developed by ourselves. It is currently 87% accurate, which is not where we want it to be. But as our data set increases, so does the accuracy. So we have this 24-hour period where once the AI has scanned a contract, which does take only 3 seconds, I will have a manual look over to just make sure that nothing important has been missed, just to make sure that the AI has been adapted.
Got it. Diego is asking, how do you handle the contracts uploaded to a platform in regards to privacy regulations?
So great question. All private or personally identifiable information is redacted. We don't care about who the counterparties are. We just care about the actual, clauses that include the legal language. So everything is secure, and we're not in the business of breaching any confidentiality. I hope that helps answer the question.
All right, great. And so how's it go? So some people asking if you're hiring, so
always reach out. We don't currently have any open positions, but as we grow and scale, that will definitely change. We do already have, it's not just us three working at Caveat. We have a fantastic legal intern, a fantastic social media intern. So if there is anything of interest, please reach out. I can drop in the chat box my personal email as well, if that's easier, but great to hear that resonated.
And can you share some stats on how many people are using it already, or when you launched it, and what kind of uptake you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that with the limited presentation time, I didn't really cover much of that, but the idea kind of came about in roughly September, October of 2021, when we were all graduate students at Cornell Tech. So I was doing my master's of law. My co-founders were doing a master's of engineering. And we kind of started developing this idea further throughout one of our entrepreneurship classes. And we ended up winning a startup award. That's what it's called. It was an investment from Cornell Tech into our company to, after graduation, do this full time. We all graduated May 2022. Since then, we've been fortunate enough, especially with the the current market, to raise further investment from our fantastic investors such as Scale and the Legal Tech Fund. We won their startup showcase recently in December for the consumer-facing legal tech company, something along those lines. And in terms of onboarding customers, we're currently in many discussions with different agencies who'd like to deploy this tech in the US and beyond. As for individual customers, it's been quite an organic growth. We've barely spent any marketing money on attracting them, but we've really built out a community on our social media platforms because we've seen that resonates well with them. And then what's great is that there's kind of a built out marketing method for us. Like we're marketing to micro influencers, models who are active on social media, and then they kind of market it onwards if it resonates with them.
So Jin's asking a question, which sort of goes back to the question I asked before. Aren't there any rubs while translating the legal jargon into everyday languages? And so that goes back to your accuracy rate, though. But how do you measure accuracy in that case? Like, what's an accurate simplification of legalese?
So what's accurate is that it actually gets translated according to the label that it has been given for that type of contractual clause. If it gives a different type of output, that means that it's not accurate enough.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, Elisabeth, thank you so much for your presentation. And folks, if you have more questions for Elisabeth, please reach out to her directly. Her email's in the chat. And yeah, thank you again, and good luck. And really appreciate you updating us. And it's very interesting kind of vertical to serve with the legal tech and legal automation. And it's interesting to see like how you're also thinking about what are the next, because it seems like you're not focused on going into other adjacent industries, but rather than really helping this community with all kinds of different agreements, right? And so there could be insurance, there could be
absolutely
other related things. So
absolutely, thank you so much for having me. And we to just kind of piggyback off of that, we have explored expanding horizontally and vertically, and we've definitely been approached by insurance companies or even law firms who are like, we would like this tech. Like there's so many use cases for the tech that we're using, and I think things such as ChatGPT have only like proved that. But yeah, we're super excited about the creator economy space.
Cool. Well, good luck and thank you again. And yeah, we'll turn it over to Matthew now. Thanks again, Elizabeth. Where's Matthew? Here he is.
Can you see me?
Yes, we can.
All right, and you can hear me all right?
We can hear you just fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so over to you, Matthew.
All right, thank you very much. There are only 24 hours in a day. If you're an associate attorney, maybe you get 6 hours of sleep, if you're lucky. You have 2 hours combined of things like bathing, restroom breaks, eating, stuff like that. If your law firm makes you come to the office, you may have an hour and a half total commute. If you have a family, you'll spend maybe up to an hour and a half non-meal time with them. On a good day, only 2 hours of work is non-billable, which leaves 11 possible billable hours a day. But the partner is going to mark down your billable time, and the client is going to negotiate the bill down too. So again, if you're lucky, maybe you get 8 hours of billable time a day that the client actually pays. And that's if you maximize your time, can plan in advance, engage in deep work, record your hours right away, and are not putting out any unexpected fires, which, no attorney I know has ever had to do that. Actually, I think about half the attorneys I know, like that's all their billable time is putting out fires. So if you're billing the client at $500 an hour and you capture 40 hours that a client is actually going to pay you a week, then your associates are bringing in just over $1 million a year in revenue. You pay them a fraction of it, pay for staff and firm costs associated with that associate, maybe invest a smaller fraction of it back into the firm, and you pocket the rest. Again, this is when everything goes smoothly. I am hearing some feedback, so if everyone could please mute, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Sorry, it's a little bit faint. I don't know if it's your mic, but if you could, I don't know how we
Hold
can.
on.
Something's covering your mic.
How about this? Is that better? Can you hear me loud and clear now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, great. So, assuming you managed to catch all that, what I essentially said.
It was clear. You don't have to start from the beginning.
Great. The moral of the story is there's only so many hours in a day, right? How do you make more money with the billable hour model when everything goes smoothly? You hire more lawyers to bill more time. That's the only way to make more money with the billable hour model. Now, this could be the point where I say, enter the subscription model, which brings with it opportunities for scaling a law firm without hiring more attorneys. Except that I do want to keep dunking on the billable hour if you'll indulge me. So going back to my hypothetical, I just want to pick out one part where the client negotiates down the bill. And the reason I want to pick out this part is to figure out why. Why do they do this? Because the billable hour is like going to a restaurant, ordering the fish at market price, except the server can't tell you how much it's going to cost until you've finished eating the fish. That's because they have to calculate, well, how long did it take for the fish to hatch in the egg, grow to maturity, get caught by the fisherman? And by the way, if the fisherman has less experience, then we're going to charge you less. However, because they're less experienced, it's actually going to take them longer to catch the fish, so we're actually going to have to charge you more. Then we need to calculate how long it took for the fisherman to get to the fish distributor and then to the restaurant for the chef to prepare and bake the fish. Oh, and same thing with the chef as with the fisherman when it comes to experience and time. And then how long that takes to deliver it on your plate for you to eat the fish. After you've eaten the fish, you'll be presented with the bill, which you're expected to pay. And if not, I'll see you in court to collect my fee. I mean my bill, and don't forget my 20% gratuity. Oh, and did I mention all restaurants charge the same way? And we have a monopoly on fish, so good luck eating fish anywhere that isn't a restaurant. It's actually illegal for non-restaurants to provide you with fish services. Would you order the fish? I wouldn't. So it's no wonder that clients negotiate the bill, and it's no wonder that people don't want to hire lawyers. Enter the subscription model. I think what our last presenter showed is that there are potential clients who are willing to pay a monthly fee for not legal advice necessarily, but at a minimum, the legal product that's being delivered. So we need to productize legal services as lawyers as well. I don't have a clever story for it yet, but another consideration, and something that I think this crowd would appreciate, is that the billable hour does not incentivize efficiency or adoption of technology that replaces billable work. I think a big reason, and I think some data is there to back this up, though I don't come prepared with it today, so it's more anecdote, but bear with me. A big reason that I think law firms finally started using e-discovery software, and not all law firms use it, right? But the ones that do is because clients caught wind of it and demanded that they use it. So if my work is successful, then clients will also demand an alternative to the billable hour. And that's only clients who are currently hiring law firms. That's to say nothing of blue ocean market opportunities that exist for potential clients priced out of the billable hour. I have had some debates with people who think that it's not a blue ocean because you have your LegalZooms and their competitors, but that is not. That is a product that is like legal services, but it's not legal advice. It's not the same thing that a lawyer can deliver. So I think there is huge market opportunity there. According to Zapier, 40% of Americans have a side hustle. Are they hiring lawyers to help with their side hustles, to help them stay compliant, get IP protection, incorporate in a way that makes sense, negotiate contracts? Not at $250 an hour or more, they're not. So I founded a law firm, Subscription Attorney LLC, and my entry-level price is $20 a month. But for this side hustle culture, for this freelancer that's out there, I offer a $300 a month package to them. Not $300 per hour, $300 per month. So what do they get with that? What do they get with the subscription model? They get access to access to unlimited scheduled calls or Zoom meetings with me in 15-minute increments. I control my calendar. I don't let it control me. In fact, I don't pick up the phone at all. I use Calendly, and in my voicemail, it says, if you're a client, sign into your client portal and schedule a time to talk with me. If you're not a client, go to subscriptionattorney.com where it's easy to sign up for the right package that fits your needs. And if you're an attorney, I give them a URL that they could go to that they could schedule a time on my calendar to discuss our mutual transaction. So the subscription model is not, I'm not here, I'm not actually selling a product. I'm actually here because I want to inspire not just attorneys to start using the subscription model and to see how I do it. All my pricing, my engagement agreement is all on my website, subscriptionattorney.com. But we also need technology that helps us do this. Because right now I'm cobbling together a bunch of different things. My front end tech stack currently costs about $100 a month to put together all the things that I need to have the automations that I'm using to run an efficient law practice. So there's your price point if you want to build in this space. And there are some builders in this space, some builders that I do want to promote. And I have no relationship with any of these companies. Fidu Legal is one, and I'll post links to these in the chats if you want to see this. They're the first attempt at a turnkey solution for launching a subscription model for your legal practice. They do integrate with Clio. Rallylegal.com is another one. They offer, they don't niche down in just subscriptions for law firms. They offer other products too, but they are also incorporating AI with some document automation and analysis features. As far as powering the payments, of course, there's Stripe and its competitors. Everyone here should probably be familiar with Stripe. In the legal space specifically, LawPay and Gravity Legal both offer specifically, and again, I'll post these links in the chat, what LawPay calls scheduled payments and what Gravity Legal calls subscription legal payments. So there is some. Oh, go ahead. I was muted. So if I was muted and we need time for questions, go ahead.
You were muted just for a short moment, just for a second.
Okay.
So yeah.
So anyway, so this is a call to action that we need people in the space to be developing legal technology that actually helps solve this problem. There's non-legal tech that I'm using. Fidu and Rally have their own version of a subscription model, but it doesn't work for me, but it can work for others. But what I think we need to come together as a community and create this technology, because if we don't, how are we going to compete? There's a labor crunch, right? So if your only way that you make money is you hire more lawyers, well, in a labor crunch market, that's more difficult, right? So what are you going to do to scale? Other industries are adopting the 4-day work week. So as an industry, how are we going to compete with that when you have to bill time in order to make money? Alternative legal service providers and Arizona's allowance of non-lawyer ownership of law firms can be great and it can solve problems. But if they do solve those problems and other states adopt it, then the way that we are as a legal profession and the role that we play in society is going to drastically change. So if we want to survive, we have to adapt. I think it also increases access to justice because when you're looking at economies of scale and efficiencies, lawyers can represent more people and serve more people for lower costs per client matter, per legal issue, if you're doing things as efficiently as possible. The mental health of the attorneys is significantly improved when they're not shackled to the billable hour, let alone that ABA data on the profession has shown while there's more women going to law school than ever before, they're still not in leadership roles at big firms because women are penalized for being efficient in their work. And women are much more efficient than men. So we need to abandon the billable hour also for DE&I reasons as well. So again, I'm doing this myself. I'll be speaking at Tech Show to actually show other lawyers how to do it in March. And I have a podcast, Law Subscribed, where I'm interviewing innovative attorneys who are using the subscription model in their practice. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Great, Matthew. Thank you. I'm all in favor of the subscription-based law firm. Based on my own frustrations with paying for billable hours. And also as my experience as a lawyer before, but there's some fairly well covered examples of ventures that tried to do it and where it didn't work out, right? I mean, Atrium as being one of the examples, and they raised a ton of money. And I think the problem was, I think if you sort of offer legal services across the spectrum of what we're trained to do as lawyers, then that just takes time, right? If you take on, if you don't just provide specific workflows or documents in a very narrow area, but you just say, I'm open for business, you pay me $300 an hour and I give you legal advice for any situation, then that's very hard to scale, right? Like you get 10 customers who want that service, and quickly it will take up a lot of your time to provide that service. So I'm just not quite sure. And then the demands will be so diverse that it will be difficult to have standardized workflows and so on. So there is a challenge in there, right? Like I totally, everything you said really resonates with me, and I'm sure with most everyone else on this call. Mm-hmm. But then where does the rubber hit the road, and how do you actually do it in specific areas.
Yeah, no, and excellent questions, right? And it's clearly coming from somebody who's not happy with the billable hour, but what other way are you going to do it, right? So all valid questions, and these are questions I'm trying to answer as I'm continuing to build my plane as I fly it. I'm in month 10, almost in month 11 of a purely subscription transactional practice, right? And what do? Well, uh, I have a lot of legal newsletters that I subscribe to, so I stay up to date on various areas of law, right? Of course, for any areas that I'm practicing in, because I still have ethical obligations to make sure I'm giving up to date legal advice and services. I use a document automation software available to me because I happen to be an Illinois general practitioner. It's through the Illinois Institute of Continuing Legal Education. It is called FormU Law, which I love a good pun. And so that document automation software is backed by the Illinois Institute of Continuing Legal Education, which pays attorneys to make sure that these documents are up to date, right? And the document automation software is very familiar if you're using any other sort of common document automation software out there. It's not as customizable as, say, like Legal Karma and Documate, but it is more than sufficient for me. And as I serve more and more clients, I am able to find certain aspects of the documents based on clients' needs that I update, and I maintain really good records and update automations where possible, and I maintain a knowledge base. And I take out personal identifying client information from past legal advice and other documents and other things that subscribers get access to. And so I'm just trying to chip away little by little at all the little special snowflake aspects of practicing law, and it's working. And I think Atrium failed because they were going for um, institutional clients too. I mean, we're talking about opportunities for solo and small firms representing people and small businesses that are simply priced out of legal services. That's what I'm talking about. That's where opportunity is, because they're not getting legal advice right now because they can't afford it. And we're also talking about prophylactic legal services, problem avoidance, not problem solving. If you talk to any legal marketer, they're going to tell you you have to show that someone's pain point has to be so bad, and you have to show them that you solve their pain point. Well, how about avoiding pain points? How about avoiding the court being clogged up and keeping people out of court and litigation avoidance, which is what I do? I have 8 years of litigation experience. I now help people avoid court.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opportunity there, and there's room for innovation. And I'm just one guy, and there are maybe a couple dozen attorneys in the United States that are using some version of the subscription model. And I've interviewed them all for my podcast. So we need more innovators in the space.
Mhm. Absolutely. So Peter's asking if you've seen any instances of groups of similarly situated clients approaching you as a group to seek non-individualized advice. For example, several solo software developers or nonprofit organizations that couldn't afford legal help on their own.
So I'm going to promote the work of Jess Birkin. I think it's Birkin Law Office or lawoffices.com. She is a nonprofit attorney who has pioneered in the subscription space, and she's also been on my podcast, though her episode isn't live yet. And so if a nonprofit comes to me, I would certainly refer them to Jess, because that's what she does, right? Like I am trying to solve a lot of problems, and I'm basically just collecting data as I practice law to figure out where this can really succeed in areas it hasn't been used yet. It started in the trademark space because that's the most obvious space, because there's ongoing brand protection needs and sending cease and desist letters and registering copyrights as people create new things, right? So like IP is where it originated, as far as I could tell from my research. But I'm using it in sort of a general practice transactional space. And so like to give a real life example, my subscription started $20 a month. I had a client find me. They needed a prenuptial agreement. We call them premarital agreements in Illinois. So I helped them with that. They also got another attorney for the future spouse. As part of that premarital agreement, it stated you need to make certain changes to your estate plan. So they were already a subscriber, and I do estate planning as well. If your matter is too complicated, you have a special needs trust, or you have other things, I refer that out, right? I have to be ethical in the services I provide. But their estate was very simple, so I was able to set that up for them. So they hired me for that. Then they wanted to sell the house that one of the spouses lived in, and they were going to buy a new house. So I helped them sell the house. I helped them buy the new house. And then they unsubscribed. But then something happened, so they resubscribed within a week, and then I was able to send a demand letter for them as well. And you got to make it really easy to unsubscribe and resubscribe. And utilizing technology and automation is the best way to do that. I only interact with my clients when they have a legal need, and I'm a true solo.
Got it. So yeah, so there's some more questions coming in the chat for you. But we do have to turn over to our next speaker. So I was hoping that you could maybe try to answer the questions in the chat.
Yeah, and I
But
will
it's
post
very cool,
all the links.
and we certainly wish you, all the success in the world with your model, and it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, it'd be interesting to learn more, and hopefully you can check in with us again, as you learn more how it works, which areas of legal practice sort of avail themselves more than others. You talked a little bit about IP and trademark practice, but what other things do you see? And so thank you so much for joining us and sharing with our group. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. LinkedIn's the
Okay.
best place to find me, everyone.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. And then last but not least, we have David.
Hello. How you
David.
doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. All
Okay,
right.
perfect.
So we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. So a little bit of a different background here. Let me share my screen real quick. Hold on. Share. Can you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Cool. So yeah, my background is actually in I started out, I went to school for product design engineering, but along the way I was making music. I'm a songwriter, musician. Music's been my passion for most of my life. And as I did more and more of it, I signed a few record deals. Moved into the space sort of 2015. Signed a record deal, and it put me into a tricky situation, but I didn't learn that for a few years. And ultimately realized how difficult it was to make a living as a creator, as a musician, as a producer, as a songwriter. And then the more work I did into these different types of the more learning I did into my record deals, which it was something that I needed I would say a translator. Those contracts might as well have been written in Chinese. It was very difficult for me to understand. And then you have to hire a music attorney who's taking, sort of either by the hour, very expensive, as we've learned from our previous speakers, or 5% commission. And so it made it very difficult to sort of like move without, legal help. And so I've come up with a way to help artists break down the barriers for the legal requirements, leveraging blockchain technology. And that's something that I've been diving into for the last 2 years. When I saw different creators and different producers using the technology for their, for their copyright, for their work, but quickly learned that they weren't, legally protecting their work. And when you look at the cryptocurrency space, and you look at NFTs, and you look at the way in which they're bought and sold, it's a totally decentralized place for the most part, and you have a really hard time knowing who's who. So the problem that I'm trying to attack is out of a personal desire to help the songwriters and musicians that I've sort of made friends with over the last 10 years, who have they're writing for the stars, they're writing songs for some of the greatest artists in the world, but unfortunately their musical composition copyright doesn't make them enough money to put a roof over their head. So yeah, let me just walk you through some of this, and hopefully I can teach you a bit about what I'm looking to create. Again, middlemen drive the industry, and as we learned from Elizabeth and her co-founder Dorothy, creators are taken advantage of and tend not to understand the sort of legal implications behind these documents that they sign, and it's resulted in an oversaturated industry with very few creators, essentially 0.02%, actually like making most of the money. Let me skip the slide. There we go. So I just wanted to highlight, another issue with this decentralized spaces. We don't know who's who, and that's another part of what I'm building, is to try and help verify some of these users and people like myself that are willing to dox myself, KYC myself. I have no problems doing that and legitimizing my business so that I can actually turn a profit. However, there's not many tools. Again, you need lawyers, you need legal documents, you need legal papers to be able to build a business. So without these authentication tools, we're going to see a lot more problems, as we have seen in both the cryptocurrency space and the NFT space, where there are what you would call a rug pull. And throughout my sort of journey in this, I'm also a visual artist, and I had the opportunity to create an NFT project for, I want to say NFT, I called it like Mr. Potato Heads, and this was about 1.5 years ago, and I needed the money at the time. And so, I put myself forward to create these characters, and I knew a little bit of code coming from my engineering background, and I was able to create these characters with 200 traits and flip them into 10,000 characters. Now, I didn't know who I was dealing with at the time, these decentralized Telegram groups, and I wasn't really sure what was going on. However, I did see musicians and things making a lot of money from their property. And so I spent a lot of time trying to learn it. So it was a great case study for me. But unfortunately, the people I was dealing with, I wasn't written into the smart contract. I didn't really understand anything about that at the time. And so, the middlemen, as I would call them, the Wild Westers, ended up, having a sort of successful launch on the project. But I would call it what would be a slow rug, and where I got paid in a duffel bag of crypto, they made off with $4 million in sort of 10 minutes from minting these little characters of mine, which put me in a really a tough position. I was for a moment I thought, am I going to jail? And it's not something that I would wish upon anybody to be a part of. And so that sent me down this rabbit hole of trying to understand how can I leverage this technology. And the sort of the developer in me woke up, and I went on the hunt, and that was about 1 year ago. And I started going to these different hackathons and different hack spaces to try and meet engineers that could tell me a little bit more about what was going on. Trying to go to the next slide here. It's not shifting. There we go. So we come up with a solution. I put my heads together with a few really great people and been building a team to really understand this, from IP attorneys to software engineers, blockchain engineers, and I've had some fortunate luck to be able to build a team that really understands what they're doing. So the idea is to ensure rights owners are fairly compensated wherever the works are used. Pretty simple. We're something that I look forward to telling you about is derivatives, and that was, again, it took me a long time to really understand what a derivative was. My background wasn't in law, but I heard them talking about it in cryptocurrencies. I saw them using these different tokens and making derivative tokens, and ultimately I understand the place is somewhat of a Ponzi scheme. These are assets backed by zero collateral. There's no real world value to a lot of them, and there's no one to support those decentralized projects. Again, it's not all of them, but there are definitely some. So, and then the idea was to create a marketplace where songwriters could come and we could create more interactions and sort of serendipitous collaborations, exposing their work to new markets. So we built an attribution protocol, and the idea is that, for us to verify that this work is the person's that it is, there are 3 things that have, got to be connected. And that's the creator of the work, of which, you'd need a KYC module in order to, upload some government ID tagged to an API that would, link to whether or not that was legitimate or not. A digital representation of the works, so MP3, a visual aid, or a video, and a legally binding document. So we came up with a solution to be able to do that. And I can go into more detail with that, but I don't want to bore you with the technical too much at the moment. And then the idea is that this would sort of fit between the song creators, the writers, the illustrators, the musicians, and then how they're getting paid for their work. Now, we're specifically targeting music initially, because that's the world I know, and that's, I've built a network of songwriters and creators around me that, would have a really tough time understanding not only the legal aspect, but the technical aspect of how to do this. And that's sort of, again, my incentive to do this is that I have a lot of individuals that are in need of breaking the barriers to sort of like the legal requirements. So, we have digital royalty collections, we have the digital music use, and we also have decentralized NFT marketplaces, which, again, decentralized marketplaces don't have to be dangerous if we know where the work is coming from and we know that this work is legitimate. So after we came up with this, what would essentially be like DocuSign on chain, we tried to understand a little bit more about the derivative market, and that's something I know very well from a music background. A derivative is another word for a remix or a recast or an adaptation, and to me that's the most powerful right for all copyright holders is this idea that you can create multiple versions of the work whilst retaining the ownership of the property. So in a typical, I'm highlighting a music deal here. Songwriters are almost automatically giving up 50% of their publishing. Now, there's two phrases. This is publishing and masters, which publishing is also equal to musical composition copyright, and the master is equal to the sound recording copyright. And the idea is that, for a songwriter, their interest is in retaining their publishing, and they're not putting themselves out as an artist a lot of the times. These songwriters sign to record deals, and really they're just doing the songwriter circuit. And that's what I was doing after I had some mild success of what you would sort of call like a C-list artist. I was in the songwriting circuit making songs for people, but over a few years realized it was very difficult for me to make money. And as I understood the streaming market and where the money and how the music industry worked, I realized that there was an opportunity to help creators overcome these barriers with a simple turnkey license that would allow a creator to create infinite versions of their song, giving the producers and the remixers, DJs, 100% ownership of their sound recording copyright, while the songwriter could retain the rights to their publishing. And so instead of this sort of constricted model where you might have one song idea from a songwriter where they've already lost their masters, it's gone to different producers and acquired by different entities, and they've lost a little bit of their publishing to a couple of these producers or maybe one of the producers, that we could give infinite lives, infinite remixes, infinite versions of this song to DJs, musicians in multiple different markets. If you want to do an Afrobeat version or a dance remix or a country song, and so for songwriters who specialize in trying to create what I would call the atomic unit of a song, a hook, a melody, some type of sample that is catchy. You'd hear it on TikTok ticking over the 7 seconds that catches you in. A lot of these guys have one shot with that if an artist takes it and if they monetize it online, because now we've got different entities controlling and exploiting the rights for them. And while they own that, they're able to sort of generate money for the catalog works, but the actual creator, the songwriter, is getting pennies. And again, this is something that I've learned over time, but streaming revenue pays out 60% of the revenue to the master holders, so that typically the label owns that, and 15% to the publishers. And that's a battle that's been going on for years, and is unlikely to change anytime soon. We're sort of going up by 15.3, 15.4, 15.5% every year, and that's something that is being developed. So we've created this sort of two-sided marketplace. Once we've checked everybody's accounted for, everyone's verified, the idea is to create like a hot pot of talent, top lines, hooks, lyrics, melodies, beats, and allow others to come in and choose to sample, remix, to work with these different sounds, and actually have ownership in the creation that they're developing. This is sort of what it would look like. We're developing out the UX UI, and it would sort of be very familiar to producers, similar to like Splice or any other type of content creation application that would show a visual for the sound. You'd be able to play it. There's different keys, different things, different genres, and they could search them fairly quickly. We have my songwriter community. In fact, I've got probably a bigger songwriter community than any of sort of other networks that I have, and that is the focus for me as we sort of launch this. The business model for it would be a paid subscription. So supporting what Matthew was saying, that we're trying to go to these options that would be affordable for creators, because ultimately even at top level it's difficult to afford a lawyer, a music attorney. But if we had some simple agreements that would allow us to break down these barriers, then we would be able to create more volume for our property. Again, talk about growth. We're building it on a blockchain, so the idea is that we're going to be collecting all this data of like early creator to creator licensing, and that's something that would be very valuable, because we'd have this before the song was released, and now creators could show that there was traction behind their work by the fact that other creators were licensing non-exclusive rights to these masters, and actually have some type of buzz around it before they've even put the song on Spotify, before they put it onto TikTok or wherever. So that's going to be some pretty valuable data. And the idea is to start with musicians and then sort of work our way. Illustrators, I'm an illustrator myself, a graphic designer, writers, designers, and sort of get into scripts and films and things. I'm pacing through this, so if there was any chance for any questions, I've got a great team of engineers. Hank, my sort of technical co-founder, brilliant guy, is in the cybersecurity space and a blockchain developer. We've got attorneys, we've got people in the entertainment space, and really A1 compliant team there. And yeah, just sort of close that out. Thank you for being here and listening, and I'd love to hear from anyone that had thoughts, contributions. I'm really throwing myself into the deep end of the technology and law, and I have a music background, and looking forward to getting this to the people. It's affordable contracts for the people, and that's if it existed, I'd be using it, and I wouldn't be doing this.
Great. Well, thank you so much, David. I think it's very cool. I think it's one of the interesting applications of the blockchain is to be able to, track, rights of people, and, even like have people sort of, create, a new work that uses sort of like bits and pieces of other people's creations, and that comes together. And then technically you could, if that new piece is starting to generate revenue, you could pay everyone out according to a smart contract.
Yeah.
And everyone would sort of have a continued flow of royalties and income. And so that's a very exciting vision.
Yeah.
And the blockchain allows us to really maybe completely take out those legal transaction costs that used to be the impediment to that kind of micro licensing previously. So I think it's very exciting. I think there's a lot of questions, and unfortunately, like kind of running out of time. There are some folks I know here at Stanford, and also IP experts that created a sort of an NFT kind of marketplace. They're also starting in music, and I feel like you're almost potentially complementary, although I don't know, maybe there is some overlap, but I should make an introduction, and so you could explore that, because there's just this idea of like, sort of the authentication piece and so on. Anyway, so I want to make an introduction there, so I will follow up.
Appreciate that.
And other than that, we like have 1 minute left, and maybe turn it to Marianne's question, is whether generative AI where the generative
Yeah.
AI challenged the creative world, which is built on blockchain.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, it's essentially data laundering. You know, they're taking property. You know, we need more licensed data sets in this space, and you know, the AI place is really taking the collective, you know, corpus of the internet and putting it into one space, and you know, then they're using that to bait creators to put their photos, their music, their ideas into a new sort of subset of data, which they then own, and people aren't looking into the small print of what they're, you know, capturing when they take that music. So yes, it's challenging, but it's also opening the space up to more creators to quickly and easily generate content, which is also exciting. It depends how you use it. I've had a play with ChatGPT, and you know, you can write some pretty creative stuff on there.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, cool. So, David, this is great. It's also a super exciting project, and you know, very interesting from a technical point of view, but also the impact on a business model, and obviously, you know, also going back to Elisabeth's presentation, you know, I think there is a huge demand to more fairly reward, you know, all the different creative contributors, you know, for this kind of you know, creative world and economy we live in. And so those are some great solutions we saw today. And so really appreciate you sharing. And also, Matthew, also, we love your subscription model, lawyers. You know, I think that's also way overdue. And you sort of, you're kind of taking a real kind of hands-on approach. You're just doing it, and you're sort of, you know, you want to inspire others, and you're in the trenches and you're doing this. So this is great. So it's been a great meeting. Really appreciate all of you and everything you do to advance legal tech innovation, and appreciate you sharing with our community. So thank you all for joining us today. We'll wrap up here now. Susan, do we have another session scheduled already?
Yeah, so our next session, everybody, is going to be February 16th. I just wanted to say that I'm going to be transferring over to the medical school, and I'm leaving you in good hands with our CodeX residential fellow, Megan Ma. So she'll be assisting Roland moving forward with these meetings, but I wanted to thank everybody and give them a little bit of time to get up to speed. So they'll see everybody back here on February 16th.
And thank you, Susan, and a big round of applause from all of us for all the great things you've done for our center, and you know, also to basically help curate and implement those group sessions. And we'll miss you, and hopefully you can check in with us every now and then.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for making this the great group that it is.
Thank you very much. All right, take care,
Thank you, guys.